Hey friends, today I'm going to tell you about one of the sassiest acts of rebellion in American history, the Boston Tea Party. And I'm going to explain it while I'm drinking a cup of tea in this magical mug. Miss Dominguez, it's just a plain black mug. No, it's not. This mug is actually a magical mug that changes colors with hot water and reveals the Marauder's map. From Harry Potter, obviously, because what other mug would I be drinking from? I promise this does have a point. My absolute favorite tea, because I'm a baby and only drink fruit teas, is Great Value Strawberry Hibiscus from Walmart. Before I make my tea, though, I do want to point out how we drink tea today, usually. Usually they come in these nifty little tea bags that we stick into our mugs. And now, once the water boils, it just comes in, makes our tea, we let it steep for a few minutes, and then we take it out, and we don't have to worry about the little tea leaves, which are actually inside these packets. These are tea leaves. We don't have to actually worry about these tea leaves getting all in the tea and us accidentally drinking them. We can just throw this away when we're done.
A few minutes later.
So now that the tea has steeped for a few minutes, and I've added my favorite collagen peptides so that I keep getting confused as a middle schooler, we're ready to go. Previously, we talked about the different things that the British were doing to make the colonists angry. They added more taxes, still didn't give colonists representation in the government, and they killed 5 colonists in the Boston Massacre. After the Boston Massacre, the Townshend Acts were actually repealed, all except for the tax on tea. So, colonists continued to boycott or stop buying British tea. Rather, they would smuggle tea from other countries in order to satisfy their tea cravings. Remember that tea was really important to the colonists. It was part of their culture. Many colonists drank 2 to 3 cups every single day. It was kind of like their comfort. It reminded them of home. Now, the British East India Company was Britain's major tea supplier, and it contributed to a large portion of its economy. Since a lot of the colonists were smuggling tea from other countries, this really hurt the British East India Company's finances and therefore the British economy. So, obviously Britain's gonna do something about it so that they can make more money because they're still in debt from the French and Indian War. Now, previously, tea sold from Britain actually was sold to colonial merchants in England and then shipped over and sold in the colonies. So these colonial merchants, these American colonists, still got a little bit of a cut from these profits. But that was about to change. The Tea Act of 1773 said that not only could the colonies only buy tea from Britain, but it would be sold directly from England to the American colonies, cutting out the middleman. So those colonial merchants couldn't even make money. What's a really great way to get on somebody's nerves? Make it so that they can no longer make money. Naturally, the colonial merchants, as well as the colonists, were not very happy about this. Particularly a group of patriots known as the Sons of Liberty. The Sons of Liberty was this secret society of men who promised that they were going to take action against these oppressive new rules from the British Parliament. The Sons of Liberty were especially concerned with the Tea Act of 1773 because now, with the middleman cut out, buying tea from the East India Company actually was cheaper than smuggling tea from other countries. The Sons of Liberty were afraid that the colonists would kind of get lazy and just agree to pay the taxes that were unfairly set by the British Parliament because the colonists didn't have representation in the government. I mean, would you want to pay extra for something that you could get cheaper on Amazon? Not this girl. It's kind of like how you know you should probably put on real clothes to do a video for your students and not wear your husband's t-shirt while eating cookies all day during quarantine. Another problem was that tea was automatically being shipped to the colonies, and Parliament demanded that it would get unloaded regardless of whether or not the colonists wanted it. In fact, they would even have to pay a tax on it whether or not they actually drank it. The colonists tried to send the tea back, but the Massachusetts governor conveniently said no because his sons actually worked for the East India Company, and money talks. So the colonists felt like they were left with no choice. After finding out that they could not send the tea back, they decided to do the most ultimate act of rebellion probably in American history. But first, it's time for 7-second trivia. Your question for today is, how many people died during the Boston Tea Party? A, 50, B, 0, C, 30, D, 2. You'll have to wait till the end of the video to find out. So what exactly happened at the Boston Tea Party? Did they sit around and sip their tea with their pinkies out?
If you want to be fancy, hold your pinky up like this. The higher you hold it, the fancier you are.
How's that?
Higher.
Like that?
Now that's fancy.
Absolutely not. Once they found out that they couldn't send the tea back and they were pretty much left with no other choice, the Sons of Liberty snuck onto the tea ships under the cover of darkness, disguised as Native Americans. They had to dump over 300 chests of tea. What a lot of people don't know is that the tea chests couldn't just be chucked into the Boston Harbor. It didn't work like that. Each tea chest was lined with this layer of lead, which probably was not good for back then, but it was lined with this layer of lead that had to be peeled back because that layer was to keep the chests waterproof. So if they had just been chucked into the Boston Harbor, the tea could still have been saved. What they had to do was bust each tea chest open with an axe, peel back the lead liner, and then dump all of the tea leaves into the Boston Harbor. Those tea leaves were like those little tea leaves that I showed you earlier that now we put in tea bags. Dumping all of that tea was a challenge because it was dark outside, the tea chests were really heavy, and they had to be quiet so that they didn't get caught. Only one person ended up getting arrested from the Boston Tea Party. Now, the answer to the trivia question from earlier was there was one guy whose name was John Crane who actually got knocked out by a tea chest. They thought he was dead, so they hid him under a pile of wood shavings in a nearby barn, and then he actually regained consciousness and everybody was like, hey, thought that guy was dead. So no one actually died at the Boston Tea Party. The Boston Tea Party is seen as one of the most important events leading up to the Revolutionary War because it made the colonists more united. They finally felt like they stood up to the bully that was Britain and said, no, we're not gonna put up with all of your unfair rules because you're not giving us representation in Parliament. And that is what you need to know about the Boston Tea Party. Hey, it turned back again. B, 0. No one died in the Boston Tea Party.